So tomorrow, Scott Robertson will be announcing his All Blacks lineup for the rematch up against South Africa. And in this video, I'm giving my lineup that I would love to see take to the field at Sky Stadium. Now, we've already done the prediction of what I think Scott Robertson may select, but I've got a few changes compared to that lineup. Jumping straight into it though, it is an identical front row to what I do think that Scott Robertson will go with. Number 1, Ethan de Groot. Number 2, Samisoni Taukei'aho. And number 3, Tyrell Lomax, with Lomax only having minimal minutes, plus with the fact that he made his way off the bench last week from his injury return. I do think the best option is to put him back in the starting lineup, reunite him with Ethan de Groot, and also with that change in the number 2 jersey, you want some sort of familiarity, and I do think that that is what you get with that de Groot and Lomax combo. Samisoni Taukei'aho, he actually had a really strong game last week up against the Boks. Cody Taylor going off with the head knock. Taukei'aho, he got himself 2 turnovers won, 4 defenders beaten. He was making some pretty crucial tackles. And off the way that Taukei'aho has been playing, I don't think it's that much of a downgrade from what we've been seeing from Cody Taylor. Lineouts, of course, will be interesting, which is why I would stick with the same locking duo as what we saw for match number 1, number 4, Scott Barrett, and number 5, Tupou Vaa'i. I was extremely tempted to put Fabian Holland back in that number 5 jersey and move Tupou Vaa'i back to blindside, but I do think that all 3 loose forwards did enough to keep their spot on the team. Tupou Vaa'i, one of the busiest players out there on the field. I was surprised to see that he actually missed 5 tackles in that first match up against the South Africans, but I don't believe any of them too costly. He would be partnering with Scott Barrett in that number 4 jersey, and I do think that Barrett, one of the most common things that gets said is he does a lot of the work that you don't get a huge amount of credit for, and I do think from rewatching that first match up against South Africa, he did have some pretty crucial moments throughout the Eden Park test, so I don't see any need to make switches now, definitely not after you're 1-0 up in that series, so more of the same is what I think would be best, and that is the same with the loose forward trio. Number 6, Simon Parker, he made 15 tackles throughout that first match up against the South Africans. He did start at number 8 in his debut match up against the Argentines, but having to transition to 6 in the return of Wallace Satiti. I thought that he did a lot right throughout the game, Simon Parker, and he seems a little bit similar to Satiti in regards of you wouldn't think he had so little caps for the way that he goes out there and plays. But similar to Fabian Holland as well in that regard, but plenty of physicality and plenty of impact for the All Blacks in that number 6 jersey. Number 7, of course, you'd have to stick with Ardie Savea here. Definitely with the fact that I know he's at Moana Pacifica at the moment, but the Hurricanes home crowd, he's been at the stadium a lot. He's played a huge amount of games here, so he's the type of guy you want in that All Blacks. Starting lineup, number 8, Wallace Satiti. He had a try assist from the last game up against the Boks, as well as making 13 carries, the most of any player throughout the contest. So for the All Blacks, if this was their loose forward trio, you've got the busiest player when it came to tackles. You've got Ardie Savea, who is always going to be busy out there on the field and also did a lot of work in those breakdowns. And then you've got Wallace Satiti, the man who had the most carries out of anyone on the field. So overall, a very good work rate coming from that loose forward trio, and I would not be one bit surprised if we see it multiple more times throughout this year as well. But the backline, 9-10, I'm not making any changes in this department. Number 9, Finlay Christie. Number 10, Beauden Barrett. I know that Noah Hotham sounds like he will be available for this match after making some good progress of his ankle injury, but I just wouldn't risk it. You know, you've already got Roigard, Ratama on that injury list, although both of those men expected to be back roughly for those games up against the Aussies, but there's no point risking Hotham here. Yes, he could bring a bit of impact, but if Finlay Christie's going to be playing 65, 70 minutes anyway, is he really going to be that different off the bench for the final 10 to 15 minutes? Then someone like a Kyle Preston got himself his debut in the Eden Park test, so I'm sticking with those 2. Beauden Barrett also getting 2 try assists from the first game and had a crucial little moment helping in the process of holding up Oxenshire. Went a little bit under the radar, the way that Barrett was able to get under the Ox, and then that is what caused that rollover from Ox into the hands of Rieko Ioane. But moving on to the midfield, number 12, Jordie Barrett. Number 13, Billy Proctor. I don't see any switches here, and I also don't know if I want to. The only thing you could say is maybe you put Rieko at 13. I know that Lester Whainarnuku, he's not actually available to get selected, so your only other options is to play Tupaia slightly out of position as a number 13. Now, he's played at about 20% throughout his career, so it wouldn't be absolutely awful for him to be in that 13 jersey. You've got, like I said, Rico transitioning back to 13 for the sake of getting him in the team, or you go with Anton Leonard-Brown, who has had a bit of an up and down type of form in just recent times. I think Billy Proctor, throughout that first match, yes, he still had a couple little errors here and there, but his defense was solid. He didn't miss a tackle, 6 from 6. I know that people talk about Rico's defense. He was 4 from 4 from that first matchup, so both of them doing well defensively. And Proctor, he is a part of that long-term plan, and up against a young, exciting Springbok backline, I do think that is where Proctor could actually shine. You know, we're going to see probably a lot of missed tackles from these two sides throughout the weekend because of such attacking flair on both sides. So perhaps Proctor in front of that home crowd could be the difference maker for that man. Moving on to the back three, number 11. This is where I'm bringing in Caleb Clarke. Played well in the Bunnings NPC yet again in the Auckland victory over Tasman, and he's just got to get some AB's minutes. I actually think he will be the starting 11 in the Bledisloe if he plays well here. But for that to happen, they need to give him the opportunity out on that left wing side. Out on the right, we've already seen the injury of Amoni Narawa. It doesn't look likely that he'll be able to play. So the question is, who do they go with on that right wing side? And I think to partner with Caleb Clarke on the left, perfect man to put on the right is Will Jordan. Now, it could be Sevu Reece that Scott Robertson looks at going with, but I do think that Will Jordan, he is an extremely solid player to have out on the wing. Yes, he plays very well at fullback as well, but under the high ball, he's been a little bit shakier than we're used to seeing. He would be marking up with Ethan Hooker, who's a young, unpredictable player for the Springboks. But I do think that this is the best way of reshuffling because it then brings Damian McKenzie into that number 15 jersey. He has been an absolute super sub for the All Blacks. Anytime he is called upon, he does exactly what he needs to. He's got the goal-kicking option, which I believe they would actually go with right from the get-go if he is that number 15 starter. And overall, just a very strong back three of Clarke, Jordan, and also Damian McKenzie. Moving on to the bench, Brodie McAllister, number 16, number 17 to Mighty Williams, and number 18, Fletcher Newell. I was chopping and changing a little bit here. In my Scott Robertson prediction, I did think he'd keep all the Crusaders together, and that's actually what I've decided to go with here. My other thinking was later on in the game, New Zealand's scrum did struggle a little bit. So the other option was to start to Mighty Williams and Fletcher Newell, and then have Ethan de Groot, Lomax, and McAllister as that replacement front row. But then you also don't want to give the Boks a brilliant start in the game when it comes to those scrums. So I think they need their big shove up front. And also with the cohesion and the chemistry of these three off the bench, I feel like it brings a nice balance to the All Blacks. Front row, number 19, sticking with Fabian Holland. Like I said, some people want to see him in the starting side from what he's been able to do throughout his young All Blacks career. But I do think for these games up against South Africa, as long as he's getting some sort of minutes, I do see it still as a win-win. He may even get to start those games up against the Aussies. But for now, you know, if he has to play that bench role, I'm sure he'll play it extremely well. Number 20, this is where I don't think Du Plessis-Karefi did a huge amount wrong, but I still would like to see Peter Larkai get that chance at 20. He's one of the few players for the All Blacks in the entire squad that hasn't had any form of minutes for New Zealand throughout 2025. Now, he was added in for the Rugby Championship alongside Simon Parker. Parker we've seen get 2 games. Larkai just waiting patiently for that opportunity. We also do see the return of Luke Jacobson into the squad. So Razor may actually have a chance of selecting him as his number 20. But I do think that Peter Larkai, definitely before the end of the Rugby Championship, we have to see him get some minutes. So why not have it on his home ground for the Hurricanes and give him the chance at Sky Stadium here. Number 21, Kyle Preston. Like I said, Hotham may be back, but there's no point risking him having a further injury. It's happened too many times where a guy will rush back into his side, pick up another injury, and be out sometimes even longer than their first initial one. Quinn Tupaia, number 22, I thought he was strong off the bench. Wouldn't mind seeing him get maybe even a full half of rugby if the All Blacks are in a comfortable position after the first half. And then 23, once again the home turf, but I would give Ruben Love the opportunity here. He has been waiting patiently. Will Jordan's had that 15 jersey pretty well locked down. And ironically, now that Will Jordan's not in the 15 for myself, I've put Damian McKenzie there. But Ruben Love, this would be a game to really test him. Up against a young Springboks team as well. I feel like that could be quite an exciting occasion for a young player like Ruben Love. So he's a bit the same as Peter Lakai. Needs some minutes before the end of the Rugby Championship. So maybe a spot off the bench as that 10 and 15 cover here would be the perfect option for that man. But nonetheless, that is my All Blacks 23 that I would like to see. Scott Robertson announcing the team tomorrow, like I mentioned. As soon as it is announced, we of course will be letting you know on the channel. But an exciting game just around the corner. New Zealand, if they win this game, they are in the box seat to go on to win the Rugby Championship. Although if Australia also win up against Argentina, that makes that Bledisloe that little bit more intriguing. And it is only a couple weeks away from taking place. But do let me know who you would like to see as your All Blacks 23. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all for the next one.